right. Welcome back. Thanking Joni Taylor for coming on the show today. My name is Brianna DeBose. This is the Black Sports Network. We are back with another Women in Sports series, and I am so excited about this interview. I should have known you all will be early because I'm talking to a women's basketball coach. Time is everything. How are you doing? Thanks again for coming on the show, Coach Taylor.
I am doing great. Brianna, thanks for having me. I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to talking to you and chatting. So, I find that I learn more from these interviews than most people listening. So I'm excited to engage and talk and create good dialogue.
Absolutely. So jumping right in this, when did you fall in love with basketball? How did you know something that you wanted to make a career out of?
So basketball has been a part of my life from my earliest memories. My dad played, my mom played. We had a basketball goal growing up in our yard. So I've always, just enjoyed playing basketball. I was a bit of a tomboy growing up, only girl in the neighborhood. So I did played football, did all the things that the boys did. I think I realized maybe late middle school that I could have a chance that I was good. I didn't realize until maybe 8th, 9th grade that you could get a scholarship.
Yes, paid for
by playing basketball, and that's when I really was like, wow, and then really buckled down. AAU was around; it was available in Mississippi, but it wasn't what it is now. So there was not, these national teams you go play on, or you could, but it just, I never really went that route. So I think around that time is when I really got serious and buckled down, went to some camps, played AAU, and decided that basketball was going to be my ticket. The way
absolutely
to get education. And again, there was no WNBA at this point. So for me, basketball was a way to get a free education and then have a career. But I've always been around the game, always played. My brother and I would go out in the backyard with my dad and our neighbors and just play. So always just had a great passion for it. In terms of coaching, it was not on my radar. I was
really?
No, I got my degree in secondary education. And I was going to go to grad school and get my counseling degree. I wanted to be a high school counselor and a Christian counselor on weekends. And so that was what my path was. And that, from early on, that's what I wanted to do. And all through college is what I wanted to do. It did not change until my 5th year. So I went to the University of Alabama. And had a 5th year to come back and student teach. And so my 5th year while I was student teaching, I was fortunate enough to be a student assistant in the men's basketball office at Alabama.
Okay.
And I worked under Darren Boatwright, who was the director of basketball operations for Mark Goffrey, who was the men's coach at Alabama at the time. And that was when I kind of got behind the scenes, caught the coaching bug, saw all the other things that, are entailed with being a college coach. And that's when I really thought, I like this. But before that moment, it was not on my radar at all.
Wow. I did not know that. That's so crazy how it all came full circle. Now, you are one of 7 Black female coaches in the SEC. And according to the NCAA, right, most recent data, 2020, there are 353 head coaches. Of those head coaches, 59 are Black women in the women's basketball space, while the playing percentage of players is around 50% of Black women playing women's basketball. How do these statistics make you feel? And what do you think needs to be done to get more Black women like yourself in these head coaching roles for women's basketball?
Right. So I think if we look at the percentages, like you said, there's almost 50% of student athletes in women's basketball that are African American or minority, and only 50% are head coaches. So there's clearly a lack of representation.
Absolutely.
I am of the opinion that the best person for the job should get the job. With that being said, I don't think when athletic directors are interviewing for these jobs, they were doing it with a diverse pool of candidates. And so I think it starts by being able to step outside of the circle of who you know and getting your short list. And
absolutely.
Some of it is intentional and some of it isn't. You ask people that you know when it's time to hire. You go to your circle and you ask that circle because you trust those people. And so you lean on them for advice on who your pool of candidates should be. There's nothing wrong with that. But if your circle looks just like you, then your pool of candidates is going to look just like you. And so I think it's important for everybody, Black, white, male, female. You need a diverse circle around you so that you can get different opinions. I don't want the opinion of just a Black female. I need an opinion of a Black male and of a white male and of a white female. I need a diverse opinion so that I can make the best decision possible. And I think that's where it starts. We've got to be able to reach outside of our circle of influence, or to make sure that circle of influence or mentorship or our board of trustees, whatever we call it, in the hiring process is diverse so that you have a true diverse pool of candidates, and then interview from there. So I think the reason why there's a lack of representation is because there's a lack of representation in the interview process, and that's where it's got to be.
Absolutely.
And then I think after that, it's about making sure that we continue to make it, I don't want to use the word safe, but make it appealing for women to feel like they can stay in women's basketball, because we are not only coaches, we're wives, we're mothers.
Yes.
We have other responsibilities, and sometimes that's challenging to try to balance all of that in the workplace as an assistant coach or as a head coach. And I think it's important, again, from an administrative level, top down, to make it, to create awareness around making it easy to have work-life balance when it comes to being a mother, being a wife, and running a program, or being an assistant coach. Because in order to be a head coach, most of the time you have to be an assistant coach. And what I have found in my 19 years of doing this is there are a lot of young women who started out with me as assistant coaches who are no longer in the business because they did not see head coaches, female head coaches, being able to do both. Have a career and have a family. And so they made the decision to step away because family was important to them. So I think, again, there's a lot of ways to tackle having more representation. It starts with the process, making sure that there's a diversity of candidates, and that means getting outside of your circle. And then also making sure that it is in an environment that creates the atmosphere where it's okay to have work-life balance.
Absolutely. You hit it right on the nail right there. Because this year alone, we've seen the push for more equity and diversity and inclusion that we've probably ever seen, with the events that have kind of gone on, and it's kind of going into that realm a little bit. We've seen a pandemic, we've seen social injustices, we've had to go through the election this past year of 2020, and up until this point has been a lot, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. I just kind of want to check in. Like, how are you doing? What drives you to kind of get through your day despite all that's going on around you? And especially, with your team as well.
Thank you for asking. I'm doing well.
Absolutely.
2020 has been unlike anything I think I've seen in my 41 years of living. But my grandmother used to always say, if you live long enough,
you'll see it.
Right. So her words have never been more true. I think the first thing is, I have a strong faith. And I am constantly leaning on God and praying.
Absolutely.
Then it helps to have a husband who is also in coaching, coaches at the professional level. And so to be able to have a partner and a spouse who understands what you do and that you can bounce things off of has been great for me. Our staff is tremendous in making sure that we try to stay positive, elevate each other, elevate our student athletes. And so, yes, it has been trying times, but for me and for our program, when a crisis happens, you go back to the fundamentals and the foundation of who you are.
Yes.
And the foundation was really strong. And so when you talk about, this global pandemic that we're in right now, and you talk about social injustice and the murder of George Floyd, and for us in Georgia, Rashard Brooks and Ahmaud Arbery, and you go on to Breonna Taylor, and you can just go on and on and on. That just transpired this summer and this fall. We've always in this program talked about leading with empathy and having grace and seeking to understand before you're understood, and judging somebody by their heart. And so when all this happened, that's what we went back to. So because that is the foundation of our program, we didn't have to have a new conversation.
Absolutely.
The only thing that we did from this point is, well, what is our next step? What do you guys want to do as student athletes at the University of Georgia? 15 years from now, 20 years from now, yes, they're going to talk about what you did on the floor, but they're also going to say, hey, you were a student athlete on the women's basketball team at the University of Georgia when COVID hit. What did you guys do? How did you handle that? How did you help make an impact in your community? They're going to ask you 15 years from now, your daughter, your son, somebody's going to ask you, hey, you were a student athlete at the University of Georgia on the women's basketball team when George Floyd was murdered. What was that like for you? What conversations did you guys have as a team? And then what did you guys do? What did you guys do as a team? And we want to make sure that we have the right answer and that we can say what we did. And the answer is we did nothing. And so we let them lead and decide how they wanted to make an impact. And for us, it's about, you drop the rock in the pond and it creates a ripple effect. So for us, how to create change at our community within student athletes here at Georgia, and then hopefully that has a ripple effect that touches our community, our state, and then our country. Because change doesn't happen in a day, right?
Right.
So I'm really proud of their efforts, and we led a voter registration initiative this year with it being an election year to try to make sure that not only everybody on our team was registered to vote, but that we had 100% registration for all student athletes at Georgia. So we did a lot of voter registration drives and got trained in that to try to help and use our voice. They sacrificed their per diem money to give snacks to students in Clark County who, because of the pandemic, were learning virtually and could not get hot meals because the only meals came from at school. And so we provided snacks for them to pick up lunches. And so there's just a lot of things that they did to try to have impact in our community. So I'm doing well. The team is doing well. We're thriving. And I think, honestly, a lot of that is because of the people we have around us and because we got it right in terms of who we are and what our core values are. And that's what we're working on now during these difficult times.
Wow. I love that, because we've been seeing these times have been like any that we've ever seen in our lives, but we've also seen the tremendous student athlete engagement that's kind of been happening that we've never seen before. I'm like, wow, I wish I was playing right now because the response from coaches like yourself have just been very supportive overall for the most part and allowing, athletes to use their voice, to be able to, speak up for these initiatives and be able to, create the changes they want to see. Like you said, 15 years from now, what are you going to say to your kids, to, folks that are in your circle? What did you do during this time to create change that you want to see, to create a more equitable society? And it sounds like you all are doing that, which I love to hear. It's fantastic. Now, I do want to ask you, kind of pivoting a little bit, this interview for you will air during Women's History Month, which, is a month that oftentimes does not highlight Black women enough and the beautiful intersections that we have to offer. When you think of celebrating women's history as a whole, what kind of stands out in your mind that is a part of our history that you can relate to?
There's so many. When I knew you were going to ask me this question, I was like, good Lord, there's so many.
So many.
For me, I always go to the past because, I was always taught honor the past, everything people did, for you while you're in the position you're in. So I immediately go to, Rosa Parks, and I think about Coretta Scott King and how she stood with Martin. And
absolutely.
But then I'll also think about things that I did not know that I would ever see, or bringing awareness and highlighting people who may not know of. Jennifer King, the first Black woman coach in the NFL. I always have to go to Oprah Winfrey. She's from Mississippi, my home.
The GOAT.
Yeah. But the first Black female billionaire. Barbara Jordan, who was a Delta, but also the first Black woman elected into Congress from the South. I think of all those pivotal things. Mae Jemison, the first Black female astronaut and woman in space. And so, for me, it's always, if you can't see it, you can't dream it. And I think, especially in roles in sports, you look at the NFL this year, and we have female referees, out there and in the NBA now, and those
for sure
did not hang up. And so, even with Goldberg, was the first woman to win an Academy Award and an Emmy and a Grammy and a Tony. There's just so many things that I think about when I think about that. Madam C.J. Walker, who was the first Black female millionaire, obviously with her hair product. So those are some of the things I think about when we talk about Women's History Month.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. I love all of it because it's beautiful kind of acknowledging those intersections and where we've been, but also where we're going. And it seems like, we're just seeing more and more just diversity along every field and every sector. And I love that. Now, you have a basketball family. Both you and your husband coach. You have 2 beautiful daughters. And the first time I actually seen you, knew who you were, was when you made headlines after giving birth. Right. And 48 hours later, you're back on the court. I was like, I'm on Twitter looking. I was like, yo, this woman is superwoman to give birth, be back on the court with her team and, be able to coach through that. When you coach, what life lessons do you want to pass on to your children and other young girls that are kind of coming behind you, and want to create, what you have and how do you want to kind of create your own legacy?
Wow. For me, it is about, I never wanted to disappoint. It is the core fabric of who I am. I want to do the right thing. I'm a rule follower. I'm not perfect by any means, but I want to do the right thing. I don't want to disappoint. And when I say I don't want to disappoint, it means that not only not letting anybody down, but giving my best. Giving my all, putting my best foot forward in everything that I do. And sometimes I still fail in that endeavor, but I know that I did my best. I don't want to look back and have any regrets and wonder, could I have gone a little bit harder? Did I do everything possible in my power to have a positive outcome in this situation? And that's just how I lead. That's how I live my life. That's how I work out. That's how I run. That's how I compete. That's how I coach. That's how I play cards. That's how I do everything. That's just how I am wired. But I don't know how to do it any differently. And I think that's the biggest thing is I was actually watching a video by Inky Johnson and he was talking about the difference between being a hard worker and working hard. And you listen to it and you're like, well, is there a difference? Sure. And he said somebody who works hard is somebody who, when everything is going perfect for them and they can see a goal or an achievement at the end of that rope or that time, then they work hard because they know what the outcome is for them and everything is going their way. A hard worker is someone who, no matter what, when things get difficult, when it wasn't the outcome that you thought, when you don't feel well, a hard worker is somebody who is going to show up every single time, consistent with great character, the same way, even when the results don't reflect the outcome that you wanted. And so I want to be known as a hard worker. And what, after having my second child, Drew, coming back 48 hours later was a decision that I made based on, number one, health. I felt great. The baby was healthy. We had family at home taking care of her. And it was to show up. It was to support our team. I did not coach. I just sat on the bench and let, our associate head coach Karen Lang handle it. But it was to show up and support. And
absolutely.
If I did not feel well, I would not have come, but I felt great. And so that's what it's about. Even when you're not at your best, if I can still play a small part in bringing positive energy, helping to be a part of a winning process, that's just part of who I am. But it's about being a hard worker. It's about putting your head down, and no matter what the situation, whether it's for you, not for you, in your favor, not in your favor, putting your best foot forward. I just believe that the gods are going to bless you. I've always felt that way. And,
absolutely.
It served me well so far.
I love it. Now, we're moving into my favorite part of these interviews, quick fire questions. You have to answer in 1 sentence or less, or 1 word or less. So, boom, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. What's your favorite pregame song?
Unstoppable Right Now by Corinne Hawthorne.
Ooh. What's your go-to meal on the road?
You know what? Right now it's pregame meal, whatever's prepared, but it's probably a salad, some salmon, and then peanut cinnamon right before the game.
Yes. Jordan or LeBron?
Jordan.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. Who's your favorite team that you've played against as a player and as a coach?
Favorite
Quick fire.
against as a player? In the SEC, that's so hard to say. I'm going to have to say, man, I get in trouble if I said anything other than playing against Georgia. Now that I'm at Georgia, right? So that's Georgia.
All right.
And then favorite team playing against?
Mm-hmm.
Good Lord. That's hard. I don't know. I have to think about that one.
Okay. We can come back. What's the first thing that you're doing when COVID is over? Like when we can just walk out, no masks, just be out there breathing freely. What are you doing?
Family vacation.
Absolutely. I second that. What is your proudest moment as a coach?
The success of our student athletes once they graduate from the University of Georgia.
Absolutely. What's a cause that you really care about?
So many. Community is what I do, community service, giving back, autism, cancer awareness. Those are all things that are really special to me and close to my heart. But anytime I can give back at all in any way is something that I'm all about. Absolutely.
Now, I did a little bit of research and I hear you are a Beyonce fan, if I'm not mistaken. I heard through the grapevine. Now, what is your favorite Beyonce song? Please tell the people.
I knew you were going to ask me this, and it's hard for me to give a favorite Beyonce song. If I'm going like old Beyonce, I'm going to say Ego. I love Ego. I love Girl.
Classic.
Around the world.
Beyonce has a catalog.
Oh, it's great. It's just hard for me to say. It's hard for me to narrow down one Beyonce song because I love them all.
I can appreciate it. I'm a stan.
My daughter's favorite Beyonce song.
Okay.
My 4-year-old JC, her favorite Beyonce song right now is "Party" that features Andre 3000.
Oh, that's a classic.
Love that.
Classic.
That. We play it every single morning on our way to school after she actually play "The Blessing." So.
Oh, classic. Good taste. Very good taste, if I do say so myself. And that is the conclusion of our interview. Thank you, Coach Taylor from the University of Georgia women's basketball. You are amazing. This is phenomenal. Thank you for taking the time out to be with us at the Black Sports Network. And yes.
Thank you. Do I have time to add one more thing?
Sure. I'm on your time. Sure.
No, going back to the question about women in Black history, I would be remiss if I did not say Angela Davis. You know, growing up, watching her be a lawyer and defend herself and walk out of that courtroom free was just an amazing moment. And wearing her afro while doing it, and with confidence, with poise. And even now, when I have the chance to go back and watch her and listen to her, just how she's able to express so eloquently and talk about everything that she was a part of and what's going on in our country now. She was also a pioneer, just to show that, you know, that was unheard of back then for you to represent yourself in that way and to actually win that court case. So I would be remiss if I did not mention her too.
Absolutely. Angela Davis is phenomenal and still fighting the cause, still fighting the good fight with the rest of us. So thank you again, Coach Taylor. This is phenomenal. And again, this is Black Sports Network. I'm Brianna. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Absolutely.